Red dust clung to the narrow trail, twisting in the wind like the ghosts of forgotten travelers. Elias Creed pulled back on the reins, bringing his weary horse to a halt. Every coin he owned had gone into this land a promise of quiet, of escape from the chaos he'd left behind. On paper, it was an abandoned ranch, a blank slate for a new life. But what met his eyes in the yard stole the air from his lungs. A girl hung from a weathered wooden frame, a giant figure swaying weakly in the dying breeze. Her legs kicked in exhausted panic, the rope biting deep into her neck, leaving angry welts that glistened red in the sunset. Her breath came in ragged gasps, barely louder than the sigh of the wind through the brittle grass. Elias gripped the reins harder, hands shaking despite years spent staring death in the face. This was no battle's fury. This was quiet cruelty, one human being punishing another, too helpless to fight back. The sun cast everything in gold: the brittle grass, the sagging fence, the girl's bruised face, and in her wide, fearful eyes, Elias saw something strange, a silent plea. Instinctively, his hand brushed the hilt of the dagger at his belt. He had seconds to act. Would he walk away like so many before him, or cut the rope, stepping headfirst into a story he knew would demand a price? The dagger flashed, slicing clean through the rope. Her body dropped with a thud, kicking up a cloud of red dust. Elias dropped to his knees, sliding his hands beneath her head. She burned with fever, breath shallow and uneven, but beneath it all there was life, a faint, faltering pulse. Still alive, he muttered, mostly to himself. Water from his canteen coaxed a weak moan. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing stormy gray eyes full of panic. Cain sold me, left me, she whispered before passing out again. The name hit him like a punch. Samuel Cain, the man who had sold him this land weeks ago. The price had seemed too good. The deal rushed and urgent. Now it made sense. Cain hadn't just sold him land. He'd sold him a buried horror, hanging in plain sight. Elias scanned the ranch, the dry boards, half-filled soil rows, fresh straw and pens. Someone had lived here recently, and until moments ago, they had suffered a betrayal no man should survive. He lifted her onto his shoulder and carried her inside the cabin. The scent of smoke and old timber pressed against his chest. He laid her on a torn mattress, wrapped the bruises on her neck with a strip of cloth, set water and bread by her side. Outside, the sun sank, bathing the gallows in blood-red light. From the moment he cut that rope, he was no longer just a passerby. Hours later, her eyes opened, gray, wary, still haunted. "Why save me?" Elias shrugged, voice rough. "I've seen too many left behind. Not this time. Samuel Cain, he hanged me." She breathed. Her shoulders shook as she told him how she had labored for him, defended his property, fought off raiders. When debts came, he offered her as payment, called her a monster, and left her for the rope. Her story cut deeper than any blade. "My name is Mara," she whispered, voice small, "but they called me the monster." Elias clenched his fists. If she survived, he would not be alone anymore. But this land came with Cain's shadow, and its weight would fall on them both. Night fell. Lanterns flickered on the distant village road. The men who had left her hanging would return, and they would not come for her alone. Hooves pounded the distance. Elias snuffed the lamp. Every creak, every step told of hunters confident their prey had nowhere to run. Mara shivered, chest heaving. Elias whispered, "We still have a chance." The front door shook. A man's voice, thick with tobacco, shouted threats. They knew his name. Cain's deception had spread. Elias opened the door. 5 men on horseback faced him, rifles ready. Their leader, bearded and sharp-eyed, demanded payment for Cain's debts and Mara. Elias stayed calm. "I bought this land," he said. "Whatever Cain promised, it has nothing to do with me." Outlaws laughed. "Out here, paper means nothing. Guns speak. 7 days. Pay or get out. Leave the freak for us." They rode off, red dust curling in the moonlight. Elias's hand lingered on his gun. War had not left him unarmed. Mara rose, shadowed and towering, eyes burning. The next evening, The gang returned, more than a dozen strong, ropes ready. Elias raised his Winchester. Mara moved behind him like a mountain. Laughter and sneers met them. Then the first shot cracked. Elias fired with deadly precision. Horses reared. Men fell. Mara charged, lifting one attacker like a sack of grain, flinging others aside. She swung a post from the gallows, clearing 3 more men. Screams and gunfire turned the ranch into chaos, yet when only the leader remained, Mara let him live. Elias warned him, "Return, and this land will be his grave." Silence fell. The battle was over for now. Inside, they tended wounds, shared a quiet moment of understanding. Elias picked up the debt ledger Cain had left, flipping through numbers that threatened to swallow them. "We will pay with work, not lives," he said. Mara's hands gripped the edge of her shirt. "You trust me?" Elias laughed. "Strength isn't a burden. It's survival." 3 months passed. Together, they rebuilt the land. Young corn stretched green. Fences stood firm. Livestock thrived. Every sunrise, Elias planned, traded, and chipped away at Cain's debts. Every night, Mara tended the home, drove off predators, laughed in a way that sounded like freedom. One evening, Elias returned from town to see Mara standing in the field, holding freshly picked corn. Pride and sunlight lit her face. Elias laughed a sound war had almost stolen. That night they sat on the porch. 3 months ago, Elias said, pouring coffee, "I thought I bought a trap. Turns out I found a home." Mara placed her hand over his. "You believed in me when no one else did." The prairie stretched endlessly before them. Dust and gunpowder had been replaced by the scent of corn and firewood. Elias understood now. The West could be harsh, but together they could endure anything. Mara, once called a monster, was now alive, strong, and finally home. A dawn stretched gold across the cabin. Smoke rose from the chimney. Elias sipped coffee, eyes lined with age but glowing with purpose. Mara laughed, calves stumbling at her feet. Justice in the West often hung from a rope, but sometimes it came from hands brave enough to cut it. And those hands had saved not only Mara's life, but Elias's as well.